This week on HomeKit News, the Qingping Motion and Light Sensor with thread. So today we're looking at a new version of an older Qingping product, the Motion and Light Sensor T, with the T standing for thread. This previously only used Bluetooth, but with thread it now supports Apple Home. I'm told this is not the final packaging, so you can't see a thread logo, but it is definitely a thread device. In essence, this is a motion sensor, but it also contains a light sensor, also exposed to HomeKit, and you can access historical data for both sensors via the Qingping Plus app. Okay, so let's see what we get in the box. You get the sensor itself, which comes with two CR2450 batteries. There's a manual in English, German, Mandarin and Japanese. There's a magnetic ball joint type wall mount and an adhesive sticker. Let's have a closer look now, and on closer inspection you can see the device essentially comes in two parts. The sensor and the ball joint fit together magnetically, and as you can see here, the magnet is quite strong, so it's very unlikely to fall off without some help. The mount comes with a double-sided adhesive, but the included sticker here is designed to fit directly onto the motion sensor if you don't have a need for the wall mount, although you can't angle the motion sensor without it. The motion sensor itself is magnetic, so you can stick it to most metallic surfaces, like our fridge freezer for example. In case you're wondering, this is the Xiaomi light sensor with Zigbee. Let's have a quick look at the battery compartment, which holds two CR2450 batteries. You can see here the cover's magnetic properties. As you probably know, there are many motion sensors available. So aside from the Qingping, there's the Aqara P1 with Zigbee 3, the now aging Hue Motion Sensor and the Eve Motion. Later on in the video, I'll compare the Qingping with the Eve, as these are the only two thread motion sensors currently available. Quickly onto Apple Home, and even though sensors no longer get their own tile as such, you can still access them from the top of the screen. As you can see, the Qingping shows up as expected, including battery levels. If we go back a step, you can also see the light sensor shows up too, and we get all the same info, except in this case it's reporting lux levels. If we briefly hop over to the Eve app, you can see that the motion sensor is indeed showing as a thread device. As with Eve Motion, the Qingping sensor offers more details via its own app, Qingping Plus, which is seen here amongst my other Qingping devices. What I've found with the app is that it has to initially connect to a device using Bluetooth in order for you to see the data, as well as make any changes, which can take some time to sync. Eve is similar, but seemingly only for syncing data, not settings. Once synced, you get to see the lux levels in 15-minute increments, as well as motion data when it occurs. The data is shown broken down into either 24-hour or 30 days. Motion history is available in a separate, more detailed area. You can also change the rate at which the motion sensor resets itself, ranging from 5 seconds to 5 minutes. It's important to note, for this motion sensor and Eve Motion, both don't have blind periods, unlike some sensors. So if motion is detected, it will still detect motion during the countdown period and will constantly reset that countdown until no motion is detected. Let's now do a quick reaction time test, and in this case I'm pitting the Qingping against the Eve Motion, and for good measure an old Zigbee 1.2 Mijia motion sensor all in the bathroom. I did around 20 quick tests and the results were pretty much the same, with all reacting pretty quickly, and on the odd occasion when one would react later than the others. In conclusion, both the Qingping and Eve were comparable, and even my old Mijia sensor kept up very well. Next up, an ambient light test, this time comparing the Qingping to the Eve Motion, a Hue Motion Sensor and the Mijia light sensor you saw earlier in the video. So in low light the results are pretty much the same, covering 6 to 8 lux across the board. When I turned up the lights in daylight, things started to look less good for Qingping, which was showing almost double of what the other sensors were showing, all of which were fairly consistent. Finally, I tested them under a desk lamp at 50% brightness, and whilst there's some wide variation between the Hue and the Mijia, once again the Qingping is showing more than double the readings of the Eve. These aren't laboratory control tests, of course, but the results are still a bit surprising. Take it as you will. As Eve is the only other thread motion sensor at the time of this video, I think it's fair to do a side-by-side comparison on some key points. So on price, Qingping wins easily at 50% of the price of the Eve, as well as using thread and offering different mounting options. But the Eve is IPX3 outdoor rated, has 3 sensitivity adjustment options, and is also ready for matter, which isn't currently the case with Qingping. This leads us on to the pros and cons, and as this uses thread, it's more than welcome in my house. So if you're only using HomeKit, it's a tempting option. It's not the smallest motion sensor, but compared to the Eve, it's probably a quarter of the size overall. The smaller the better for motion sensors, in my opinion. At 50% of the price of the Eve, despite the extras that the latter offers, for those on a budget who also want thread, then this is good value. When it comes to placement options, 3 in total, it competes with the likes of Aqara's motion sensors with easy battery replacement too. Now there are 2 cautious points here, the first of which is the accuracy of the light sensor. I personally don't use light automations that often, but with the wide variation compared to these other sensors that I tested, if you do use these in automations, you may have to adjust your expectations slightly. And finally, matter. Qingping has said it's something they're looking at doing, although there's no date or timeline in place as to if or when this will happen. So that's our quick look at the Qingping Motion and Light Sensor T. All in all, for HomeKit only users, this is a decent device given the attractive price point. So it's hard to complain, but please leave your thoughts or any comments below and I'll always reply. As always, please like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, stay safe. And as my dad used to say, don't waste paper. It doesn't grow on trees, you know.